Yo, JD here, Limitless, and as you can see, we are back on F1 2021 as always, and we return with our world record attempt series. This time, we are going to the Netherlands, Zandvoort, if I can find it on the time trial screen, because I'm having a bit of a hard time finding it, as you can see here. But this is one of my favorite tracks to drive. I think in terms of race pace, it probably is my strongest track. But the reason why I want to do this series is, I've said it before, is that I really want to give a true perspective on what it takes. Because I think a lot of people see some unbelievable times, because there are so many amazing drivers on all platforms that just do these lap times that you think are just unfathomable. But there's a journey to get there, and obviously for some people it's a little bit quicker than others, but for me, this is my weakness. My weakness is definitely one lap pace, and I think it's mainly because my driving style has always been to drive at 95% all the time, which means I'm very, very consistent in a race situation and doing it when it counts as well. Whereas in a TT, it's just about getting the absolute limit out of the car and everything. And there are many, many people who are very good at doing that. And obviously in TT, when you do that one lap out of 100 that sticks, then it looks great. But when you do it online, especially in a league race situation, you don't get 100 chances. And also, if you adopt that approach in a race where you're pushing 100% all the time, that's where you find you make mistakes by losing the car, track limits, just not being consistent at all, because you're just having one good lap and then the other laps are just full of errors, and you have to manage the car with tyre temps and wear and etc. as well. There's a lot more management in a race than there is in TT, so both of them are as hard as each other in my opinion. But I feel for myself, this is one area that I definitely want to improve on even more. And you can see with this, we're using the stock setup, so just to complete default. And as you can tell by the video length, you're going to be seeing many, many laps here today. And for myself in the past, I found videos such as this very, very useful to me in terms of learning how to drive a track and visualizing the approach and to actually getting better. And that's what I really hope people can take away from this video. Not it just being hopefully entertaining, but also very educational, and just giving a sense of reality of what it really does take. Because when you see those times up on the board, they could be very, very intimidating, but quite often there's a lot of work that goes into it as well. And I'm definitely someone who has to work a little bit harder than some others, because this is definitely an area that I want to improve on even more. So I use these laps when I'm doing default to really kind of just learn the track, even though the setup's going to be very different. Just learning when to push, what corners you can attack, what corners you can't, and just get myself familiar with the track again. And typically I found in this game I can get within about a second of what my fastest lap is going to be when I actually put on my own custom setup. And you can see I've actually changed the front brake bias here, so that's something I'm experimenting with a little bit more recently, because in the past I quite often like to use the same brake pressure for consistency, but I think on this game I've started to see, especially over a lap, you really do have to play around with it a little bit more. So that's one thing I'm trialing out here. And of course, if you use the brake bias a little bit more to the rear, your change of direction is going to be better. You're not going to lock up as much, but you run the risk of your rears locking, so it could be a little bit more oversteery, and the braking distance will be a bit shorter. So in Tel 1 I'll typically use 56. See, we're invalidating, but we're still continuing. I think in the straight you'll see we probably turn it back up to 56, which I do. So just the ability to brake a bit later, be a bit more aggressive into this corner for it to not over rotate, and then going through these next sequence of corners as we come out of this carousel corner, I think you'll very quickly go see me again change it back down to 55, because in the high speed section it's very difficult to lock up and you really want that change of direction. You can see we have done that here, but all the time when I'm going through these laps, I'm just trying to learn of where I made the mistakes on the previous lap. So in certain corners I might have hit a bump a little bit too much, or might have broke a little bit late or too early, or not getting the traction well enough. Like here, I just went a bit wide going into this corner, a little bit too much on the curb on the exit. So next lap, I will remember that when I go into that corner, that I have to tidy that up just a little bit. But you can see with the lap time, we are improving it quite a lot from the previous lap as well. And that's what you find in time trial, or when you just put more time in general to the game, you'll find that just those very, very small corrections you make really do add up to a lot of lap time over time. Which is why between esport drivers and very, very good drivers, that there are 2 or 3 tenths difference, because every corner they're just making that 100th better decision in terms of being a bit smoother, a bit aggressive, more braking later, more aggressive with the throttle. Just all those things really do add up, although it's very hard to notice, they really do. And you can see again, but we're going to go down to 54 now, so being even a bit more aggressive with the brake bias, and that's really going to help through these corners. And you can see by the delta that it is actually helping through into here, downshifting, gaining more time on that apex. So that's really kind of my philosophy when I'm approaching things such as this. I always try and take note of where I can improve on every single corner, and that's why I keep doing lap after lap as well, because I just don't want to become rusty in a particular sector. So for example, if I'm very, very poor in sector 1, I'll keep on doing sector 2 and 3, because once I nail sector 1, I will be very, very familiar with the rest of the lap. So that's kind of the way I want to approach it, and that's the way I really do approach, or recommend others to approach, although it might be a bit more time consuming. And that's what I really do recommend. You can see in the end we did a 10.4, which is, I think, a pretty good time with stock setup. So now we're actually going to be using a setup from the leaderboard. I think it's BMG Hawks, who is very, very fast. I think I've raced him many times in the past, and he's probably one of the fastest drivers on raw 1 lap speed that I have come across. He is very, very talented, but it's kind of the same as I was talking about before. He might have improved now, I'm sure he has, but remember in the past he was very, very good over a lap, but then definitely made mistakes in the race, particularly with time penalties. And that's because you just have to be a little bit more consistent and manage things a bit better. But that does come with experience. But I also say that no matter how experienced you are, you can always learn something new. So you always have to try and humble yourself. And just because you've played 5 years longer than someone else doesn't mean you necessarily are better or know better. You always have to be open-minded, and that's definitely what I'm trying to do here. So you can see we're using that setup. We're going to be slower in a straight line because we are using higher downforce now, but you'll be able to see, particularly going through these corners, you can see the time on the apex, particularly in the slow speed. You just gain all of that time. So losing it again on the straight, about half a tenth down the straight, but you can see again going through these corners. That's where the time is gained, and not a bad first lap when using a custom setup. So the setup didn't feel really too bad at all. Let's go come across the line. Let's see what we can do here, and it's a 9.7 on our first lap with a custom setup. So that was actually very, very promising, because typically I will improve a little bit more as I get used to the setup itself, and that's why I always recommend to stay on board with the setup you're using for about 3 to 5 laps, and then if you can't make any real improvements from there, then it might be an idea to actually change something. So we're just going to stay on board again. Let's see where we can gain the time. So definitely through that corner, made a mental note that I can gain some time through it here. through into here. Let's not go out so wide this time, staying a bit tighter. And you can see on the exit, we've got a much better exit than we did on the previous lap. Going into chicane, we actually did it very, very well. This time we broke up very, very early, so being a bit too cautious. You can see the delta reflected that as well. But we've got a decent exit coming off this last corner. Let's see what we can do. We actually get a better exit than we did on the last lap. So I made a note that into the chicane, I could definitely be more aggressive. I'm gaining some time through the high speed corners. It's another 9.8. So we're going to try and replicate that again, going through into here. And yeah, just being a little bit too aggressive with the throttle, almost losing the car. Some nice drifting skills here. And yeah, that was a good test with that setup. But we are still going to continue with it as well, as I said. It's coming through here. You can see going for high speed. I've definitely realised I need to gain the time, but I'm a little bit wide of the apex going through into that right-hander. But on the exit here, getting a very nice exit. So just making those small strides to your mistakes on the previous lap. You can see we're going in with some good intensity into the chicane, getting a good exit, and this is a much, much better lap. I know I can gain some time off this last corner as well. We're a little bit hesitant on the entry, so we lost about 100th from what we could have done there. And going across the line, this is going to be a 9.7, so a low 0.7 now. So that puts us at 31st on the leaderboard. So progress is pretty good. Going a bit wide on that last corner, so I know I can gain a bit more time again. Going through these corners, I knew I could gain a lot of time. So going through into this one, try and stay nice and tight. Slingshot yourself. Coming off this corner, we get a very, very good exit. Let's see what we can do going through into chicane now. That was pretty nice. Stay nice and tight. Don't go on the curb on the exit. And that was a very good exit. We know in this last corner we can gain some time as well. So being a bit more aggressive going through it here. And you can see we gained it during the middle of the corner. But on the exit, not the perfect one. But we still have gained some time overall. And now it's a 9.6. So making very, very good progress. And now we're into the top 20 already here. On the next lap, we are matching our time for this first sector. Doing this very, very nicely. Coming through into here. This is not what you want to do. You don't want to brake on that curb, because that is exactly what happens. So overall, I felt pretty good with that setup. But because I know what I need in my own driving style, and you can see we're actually still continuing the lap despite spinning. So I always just recommend doing this. See, going a bit too aggressive into there. Tyre temps are not an issue because that's not a thing in TT. So I felt to myself I was getting a little bit too much oversteer in certain corners. So we're going to make a few changes to the setup now. And you'll be able to see it has an immediate effect. So traction was a bit of an issue for me. And off throttle, when I was coming off the throttle, it was oversteering a bit too much. So you'll be able to see the changes we actually make. So we're going to go put a little bit more downforce. I believe we're going to increase the off differential. Not yet. We're going to lower the front toe. That's actually going to give me more traction. And with this roll bar, this is a bit different to what I typically would use. I prefer the front softer than the rear because I like having the grip in the high speed corners. So I felt the car was a little bit lazy through the high speed. And then I ended up losing it a bit more. So we're going to lower the front and keep the rear the same. We're going to increase the brake bias. And we actually do make it towards more of a locked off differential. And what that is going to do is that it's going to stop the car oversteering when we are going off the throttle. Because it's not allowing the wheels to be moving as freely as they would towards an on-lock setup. So if you're struggling with oversteer when you're going off the throttle in slow speed corners, then I would always recommend making the off differential a bit more locked. So let's see if that has made any difference straight away. So coming through into this tail one, wasn't struggling too much with this, but you can see absolutely almost immediately going through here, we're getting a little bit of time, but I believe it's coming off the exit of this corner. This is where we were struggling with the traction. You can see we're half a tenth up. So straight away, we are making up that time. So that's where experience does come into play. a bit more, knowing what you need in your own driving style. And you can see we're 700s up. Before we hit that curb, we're almost a tenth up on our time with just those few little changes. So with the anti-roll bars, just having more grip in the high speed, and just with the off differential, making it better on the traction and lowering the front toe as well. That front toe, if you increase it, I find gives you more high speed grip but less traction, and then vice versa if you do the opposite. So you can see it's been a bit of a clumsy lap, but we actually are looking to almost improve. So I felt that was a very, very positive change that we did with the setup, and I knew that that was definitely the right direction to go in. So we're going to stay on board again for quite a few laps in a row here. So I know coming through here, this is pretty much equal, but it's going through this corner. This is where I can make up a lot of time, and once again we are half a tenth up. So definitely with that off differential, although it can give you a lot more rotation the lower you go, sometimes it gives you too much extra rotation. But you can see go through the high speed grip with the roll bars, working very nicely, hitting that curb again. So that's definitely an area we need to improve on. Let's see what we could do going through into here now. Try and stay tight, but we got a little bit wide going through into this corner. Get some good traction, but overall that was a little bit of a sloppy left-hander. Trying to be more aggressive. We were struggling with this corner before, but you can see by the delta we definitely made some improvements going through into that corner. Off this last corner, definitely some time to be gained as well. And again, I'm going to keep on going because I felt like those laps were still not particularly great and still a lot of time in there. So that's a 9.7. So consistently we're lapping pretty fast now, but we just need to nail a very good lap. So we get a very good exit. Best exit we've had coming off turn 1 so far. Missing that apex ever so slightly a little bit. I like to take a tight line going through here. This is just something that works for me. I know other drivers short shift into 4th gear, go a bit higher. For me, I prefer having more of the speed on the entry. Going through into here now. Let's see what we can do. We're doing this very nicely. Almost a 10th up. Do we hit the curb this time? No, we don't. So much better. You can see the delta is loving that we have missed that curb here. So we were almost a 10th up. A bit sloppy through that right hand. A bit wide once again. So we need to fix that corner. So lost about half a tenth once again. So that left-hander, definitely more of a weakness. Are we going more aggressive into here? Yes, we do go a bit more aggressive. Stay nice and tight to here again. Trying to get some good traction as we do. Coming off our last corner, we can definitely gain the time once again here. Do we do it? Yes, we do. And we're about half a tenth up. What is this going to be? It's going to be a very low 6, which it is a very low 6. So progress, not perfection, is definitely something you should be taking away. But we decided to make another change. We actually went one less on the wings, because I just wanted a bit more straight line speed. And going less with the wings is not just going to help with the straight line speed, but it's also going to help with the stability going through the high speed corners. So it will give me a bit more understeer, but if I can continue that momentum going through the corners, then it could actually be a very, very positive change indeed. So we're going to stay aboard once again, because of course we're going to show as many more laps as we can here. So going into this tail 1, trying to be aggressive going through it. I suspected I was going to lose some time going through it, and you can see the lack of downforce. We have lost 600ths of a second, but doing that apex a bit nicer than before. Let's see what we could do on this exit. So you can see we're about half a tenth down, but with the straight line speed advantage, you can see we are quickly closing that time back. But it's going through these corners where we definitely improve here. So losing some time, but going through this right-hander, let's see what we can do. Being more aggressive this time. And you can see we've actually gained a bit of time on this delta. Going through here, the car is a bit more planted. So despite the lack of downforce, as I said, it makes it a bit more planted. And you can see in the exit here, we've lost some time in the corner, but we are making it up on the exit as well. Being as aggressive as we can, going through into try and stay nice and tight, washing it out wide just a little bit. So a little lack of downforce, but getting some very, very good traction on the exit. Going through to it, being more aggressive now. And now we're going to be making up time going towards the line. So you can see that delta is rising here. And that one change straight away, that was definitely the right decision. A 109.576. So it's all about adapting as you're trying to improve yourself, knowing what you need, what direction you need to go into is a very, very key thing here. So you can see being a little bit too aggressive going through into here, but you'll be able to see as the laps keep on going, once you hit a certain lap time, you will find that you just keep on hitting that lap time all the time, which I think is probably one of my main strengths of my driving style, that I'm able to hit near my maximum quite consistently. But you can see a few errors are creeping in now, and this typically happens when I spent a little bit too long on a time trial. So I always recommend to do maybe about 40 minutes absolute max, and then go away, take a break, come back the next day or a little bit later. But with this one, we just tried to persist to see what we could do, because I felt like a 9.2 would be very, very difficult to do, but I think a 9.4 is something I would be pretty happy with. So you can see we're continuing this TT here, trying to get a good exit. This is definitely one of my weakest corners. We get a fairly decent exit this time, so we are 0.03 of a second up. Are we going to be aggressive into chicane? Yes, we are. Trying to stay nice and tight. Don't let it drift out too out wide. You can see we're gaining a lot of time by just hugging that apex here. Going off this last corner, do we do a good exit? Yes, we do. We do a very good exit. Stay nice and tight to minimize the distance off the track. And what time is this going to be? Is it going to be a 4? No, it's not. It's a 0.514. And as I said previously, once you hit that lap time you thought you couldn't achieve, you will find you just keep on doing it all the time. So you can see we ended up being very, very consistent, doing 6s and 5s all the time here. And we're going to stay on board on this lap because this was a pretty nice one, doing another 0.5. So just showing what our consistency is. So just being more aggressive. And you can see that is the best first corner. We had 700s up on our best time, and that's what time trial is sometimes, is that for reasons you can't explain, you just put everything together and it just comes off very well. So you can see we're 500s up on our fastest lap here. So this is pretty good. We're missing that apex a little bit, so we have lost that time going through into it. How do we do going to it? Clipping that curb on the inside, which is not optimal, but gaining it back through this right-hander. Let's see what we can do go through left. Stay tight, so gaining it on the entry, but I think we're going to lose out on the exit as we do here. So we're about 400s down. So I knew what the potential was, being more aggressive on this curb. Stay nice and tight here. Go lose out a little bit, so we gained a bit of time during the corner, but then on the exit, yeah, not a good lap. So that shows the potential, but now we're going to jump on board for the fastest lap that I did manage to achieve in the end, and I was pretty happy with this. So going across the line, can we make up that 700s going through into it? So let's see what we could do going through into this corner. This time we don't make up the 700s, but about half attempt, so not too bad at all here. Stay nice and tight going through into this corner, trying to get a good exit, and we're about 300s up, so about 200s down than what we were on our previous lap. But going through to here, let's see if we can take it nice and tight, and this time we do it much, much better. You can see half attempt up going through into here. Do we hit the curb on the inside? No, we don't, so we do that very, very well as well. Trail braking really nicely going to this corner, still half attempt up, not going too wide here, but trying to get a good exit. Lose a little bit squiggly on the exit, but we are 300s up once again going into chicane. Do we do this aggressively, fairly aggressively, try and stay nice and tight, don't let it drift out wide, and we get some very good traction on the exit. What can we do coming off this last corner? We do this very, very well here, so 400s up now. Are we going to make it into the 0.4s? I think we are. Going across the line, it's going to be a 9.464. And that puts us 6th on the leaderboard. We do have 2 ABS runners up ahead of us, so I would probably say that is 4th, because ABS is faster in this game when you get used to it, which I will be releasing a video on that very, very soon. But Hawks, 0.298, so less than 0.2 away from him. I'm very, very happy with that, and I think there's probably another 10th or so in my lap. I think a 3 a low 3 or mid 3. I think a 0.2 would be a perfect lap. And I think the setup he is running is a little bit different to mine. We went back to 11 wings, so we are going to be a little bit slower in the straight line than him. But I always try and tailor these to a bit more of a raceable setup online. So 100 on throttle, which a lot of people are using now to get the maximum traction benefit. 1.7, and you can see 5.7. So went a little bit stiffer, but still softer on the front than the rear. 3.7, just to get that little bit more downforce as well. I find this works very, very well for me. And then 156 and maximum tire pressures, I think is really the go-to as well. So I really hope you benefited from that. That's the aim of these videos, to try and showcase of what a true perspective is in trying to achieve a very good time and how I approach these as well. So thank you so much for the support on the channel. Become a YouTube member if you want access to my league racing setups, any changes I make, and also coaching that I will be doing very, very soon. You will get a discount if you are a YouTube member with that. So thank you so much, and I will catch you very soon. Peace.